Welcome, listeners, to www.ironradio.org, the website and podcast for all things strength sports and sports nutrition. With your hosts, Lonnie Lowry.
Remember, Phil is like a gnarled old oak tree held together with scar tissue and bone spurs.
Rob Fortney.
And I'm telling you, the pain that I would suffer was beyond excruciating.
And Phil Stevens.
Do it, Rob. You'll kill all those nerves.
Thanks for listening.
Hello, everybody. We got another episode of Iron Radio, and, well, this is Phil Stevens. I'm leading you off today because Lonnie is out gallivanting around the country. So I'm Phil. I'm a powerlifter, Highland Games athlete, coach. I run Strength Guild, the Barbell Open, a bunch of other things. So.
Awesome. I'm Dr. Mike T. Nelson here, reporting or coming in actually from Jacksonville, Florida. So down here presenting for the NSCA CPT conference, which is pretty fun. I run Extreme Human Performance, did the course creation for Eat to Perform, did a couple of stuff for them. Some other stuff coming up next year for the Carrig Institute, teach online, and other random stuff.
There you go. How's the NSCA thing going?
Strength and muscle sport news.
Oh, it's been good. Yeah, they had the pre-con going on yesterday, and the hands-on session was good. Got to see Nick Tuminello talk about some rope stuff. Dr. John Mike was there doing presentation on overhead pressing. So, yeah, that was good. And then I saw Marie Spano's talk this morning real quick on 5 common nutrition questions. So that was really good. I always love listening to her speak. And Dr. Jose Antonio is presenting right now on basically protein is not evil. About high-protein diets. He had a new study that just came out. We've talked a little bit about that in the past year. And then, yeah, I present tomorrow on metabolic flexibility for performance and body composition.
There you go. Yeah, I just saw that. Somebody posted like it was a year-long study that pretty much saying protein wasn't evil.
Right,
well,
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so.
Go figure.
That's good news. It's good news for us all. I think we kind of knew it, but it's nice to have, like you said, you got to have the science behind you, so.
Oh, yeah, totally. And it's, one of those things we had a whole bunch of data. I know Lonnie's done some data on that, too, and it's always nice to see, longer-term studies and all the nice little sciencey stuff we like just to confirm what we think is going on, because if it hasn't really been studied to that degree, you not really know for sure. Something may be different, so.
Well, we're going to kind of have fun today. We're just going to bounce all over the place, and I figured today we will start. We had a listener email, so we'll start there. I'll just say it's the guy's name is Michael. He wrote us last year asking for advice about entering his first powerlifting meet. He said we were all very generous. He decided to do his first meet at 43. Amazingly, he won his age and weight group. He expected to be intimidated by the other lifters, but instead I was shocked at the gentlemanly decorum. Everyone was humble and welcoming, and they made me feel like I belonged there before the first lift even happened. I was shocked at the atmosphere. I can't wait to do it again. It was nothing like a normal gym culture. Perhaps Phil can comment on why this is so different since he exemplifies this. I think it's because even though powerlifting seems big now, and I think it's because we have social media, it's still a very small niche sport.
Oh, yeah.
Compared to like baseball, basketball. So once you're in, you're kind of in. You're part of that group, and people kind of take you under your wing, and it's it's not as small as say Highland Games, which is the same way, but you're part of a smaller group, and it's like we kind of help our own out, I think is what it is, and everybody wants to see. We were all that first lifter, and we know how we hope to be treated, and maybe some weren't, so they look to change that, but I think from what I've seen in general, there's bad people in anything. But 99% of them are just good people that are willing to help you out. So, and you're all there in a weird little fight against gravity. So, you kind of cheer each other on. Even you see that with lifters that are in the same weight class, potentially going against each other in a meet. Mm-hmm. Generally, they're cheering each other on. Like last night, I had 2 of my lifters, my junior lifters. What I do sometimes is basically I walked in and said, okay, you guys are going against each other. Whoever gets the biggest total gets a free T-shirt.
Nice.
And it pushes them, and they were both cheering for each other to do better. But it also that little bit of competition helps. So, I don't know. I think part of it though is, like I said, it's still the niche nature of the sport, and you're really not directly going against each other like you would in, say, a boxing match or something like that. It's you guys are both fighting the same enemy, which is gravity. So. Helping each other out in that is just kind of the way it goes. But
yeah, and a lot of the gyms I've even been to, I've done probably 3 meets total in the past. I haven't done one for a while. I did a strongman one about 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago now, and it is very, I think, intimidating just to kind of walk in. I remember the first meet I did. I didn't know anyone there. I didn't know anything, and the guy I was working with. He's like, oh, yeah, and you have a singlet, right? This is Friday night, and the meet was locally Saturday. Mm-hmm. I'm like, no. So I'm running around to, like, Sports Authority trying to find one I can, wedge into and, all this kind of stuff. Because I'm like, well, I don't want to, put all this time and effort and miss it just because of something stupid like that. But you get there, and I didn't have anyone to do a handoff for me. I didn't know anything, and... one of the guys that had run a bunch of meets locally said, hey, if you need a handoff, just let me know. And it was super cool. And he's like, okay, make sure you listen, for the commands, just relax. And he walked me through, the whole thing. And, he didn't have to do that, but he, obviously saw I was utterly freaking clueless, and you just see that where, and I think with, like you said, with social media and stuff now, it seems, I don't know, I guess more popular, but even if you go to bigger meets, whether it's a strongman or Olympic lifting or whatever, there's really not that many people there. You compare to how many people show up for, like you said, for a baseball game or things of that. And the other part that I really remember too is the second meet I did. There was a woman in the crowd, and it's different, I think, when you go to a meet too, because you have to obviously perform at that day, at that time. And to walk up and do it in front of a crowd of people. So I'm just used to lifting in the garage by myself. And I remember this one woman was just like yelling and screaming, and I thought, wow, that was really cool. And I talked to her afterwards, and I'm like, I'm looking at her going, do I know her? And she's like, no, you just looked like you were kind of nervous and needed some help. I'm like, well, that was very cool. She didn't know me at all, Yeah. So, yeah.
No, that's good stuff. I just had something in my... Oh, no. And this led me to think about, the small nature of powerlifting and this and that. I always hear it in the gym. It's like one of my kids or one of my lifters is like, yeah, but I'm just not that strong. Yeah. And this and that. And again, it's due to the, we're virtually very close to very strong people now. And that's just explaining to them. I mean, if you're a 15-year-old kid and you're squatting 250 pounds and you weigh 150,
yeah,
you're freaking strong.
Yeah.
You're stronger than 99% of 15-year-old kids in the world. You just know these other ones. You just know about these other ones because of social media now.
Yeah,
and it's realizing, and that's the same thing with any of my clients. It's like I got 60-year-old ladies squatting 150 or whatnot. It's like you are stronger than 99% of your peers.
Yeah.
It's just skewed. You're skewed due to the crowd you run in, and so I mean that's kind of part of it. But
yeah, and I think it's the old thing of my 2 words that I just despise right now are optimal and perfect. Because people are like, well, I'm waiting for the optimal time to do it, and I just need to get stronger, and it's like, well, but yeah, you can always get stronger, and they're like, well, they're going to laugh at me. And I'm like, I don't know. I've never seen that. The second meet I was going to do was supposed to be a push-pull, and then they didn't have enough registrants. So they said, well, you either do it as a full meet or you can't do it. I had some hip issues and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, so I guess I have to squat now, which I wasn't planning on. And I remember the announcer, he's like, I have the total up there, and I complete the rep probably 4 inches below parallel, and he's like, good lift, plenty deep.
Yeah.
And my squat was less than my bench press, but if you wanted to do it, that was the only option, because if you miss the squat, then you're out of the meet. So nothing will ever be perfect.
No, and that's one of the ongoing jokes at my gym is, like, I never say perfect. when somebody hits a lift, it's like, not bad, and they're like,
yeah,
that's pretty good, you
Yeah.
know. And it's I don't believe in that word, and it's because we can always get better, but we're striving for perfection, but if you ever get there, then why even keep going? I hit the perfect squat. Well, I retire now.
I'm done
because I can never do better than that. Hey, we'll move on. He's got more parts of this question, but I just wanted to hit up on that. I come to you today with my pledge for the fall funds drive and a hearty thank you and another question. As I understand it, new lifters make some strength gains with neuromuscular adaptations, but as a lifter advances in strength, he or she needs to add muscle mass. This is how they get stronger. So I'm wondering, for advanced athletes who are weight stable, by what mechanism do these athletes gain strength? If that athlete adds muscle mass, he or she will weigh more. And yet, we see athletes staying at the same weight class getting stronger. So how is this possible? Please explain for a poli-science major from a state school. I'll let you start off on this one.
Yeah, so that's the classic kind of cross-sectional area versus kind of strength, right? So initially, and there are textbooks that state this, that when you start a training program, it's more of a neurologic type adaptation. In essence, there's multiple things going on with that, but I think one of the big ones is if you've never, to say, deadlifted before, it's going to take you a while to figure out what is quote-unquote good form, right? And you're basically, if we look at rep 1 to even rep 10 in your first session, they're probably going to look quite a bit different compared to an advanced lifter. And there's some fancy biomechanics studies that have looked at this too. So you're also kind of practicing something a little bit different each time. You're trying to figure out what points do you get better leverage, because even a small movement with, for example, the deadlift makes a big difference in terms of leverage and things of that nature. There is some question now about so classically we would say that, well, for the first 4, 6, 8 weeks, it's all a neurologic adaptation. You can't gain any muscle. I don't know if I go that far anymore. There's some newer research that's showing that maybe it's probably a combination of both. That's kind of where I'm leaning towards a little bit, but I haven't had time to take a deep dive into that research yet. And for experienced lifters, like we see this in, relative strength, right? So relative strength, especially if you're competing in a weight class, then you want to be as strong as possible by whatever measurements you're using. So power lift, say squat, bench, deadlift, if it's Olympic lifting, it's Olympic lifting. And if you can increase sort of the neuromuscular side or the neuro side, then you can get stronger without necessarily having to add muscle. The other parts that I think people forget is that most people who compete in a weight class or at the high end are also very lean, right? So if you trade 5 pounds of fat for 5 pounds of muscle, hypothetically speaking, you're going to weigh the same, but I think you have the potential to be that much stronger because you're adding, contractile tissue. The last thing on that, I talked to a researcher a couple weeks ago, because the old thing, and I would agree that I was much more in this camp, and now I'm in the point where I'm not really sure, is that if you add more muscle, right, so cross-sectional area, you will be stronger. And that at some point, the only way you can get stronger is to add more cross-sectional area. And so he's going to send me a bunch of research I'm actually going to go through and look. And his argument is that's probably not as true as what we think. Mm-hmm. So the short answer on that is I think if you add more muscle, I think you definitely have the potential to be stronger. Do we know exactly how much that transfers? I don't know. There is some stuff that Greg Knuckles has sent me looking at cross-sectional area and strength increases. And anecdotally, we also know that, like Kendrick Ferris, for example, for Olympic weightlifting, as far as I know, and you probably know more on this field than I would, I think he's putting up much bigger total now than what he did before, but he's also in a heavier weight class too. Mm-hmm. So usually in general, you see people go up to the next weight class, they move more load. Now, is that a thing because they've been doing it longer, so they're more, neurologically efficient? Do they have, more weight maybe to counterbalance some of the moves? Is it just actually more muscle? I think it's probably all of those, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's just that there's so many things going on there at one time. I think it's part of it that neurological change doesn't stop after 5 weeks.
Oh, for sure. Yes.
We keep neurally getting better. I mean, they've done tests on, the average person versus an elite powerlifter or weightlifter, and just the amount of muscle tissue they can fire at one point is much greater than the average person. That takes more than 6 weeks to learn. So it's years of that. It's refining technique, like you were talking about, just a little bit of technical change here and there. Take a really good athlete, keep them the same weight, and refine their technique to where it's even better. That, in turn, the bar, they're not stronger, but the weight on the bar goes up because they're technically better.
They basically have better leverage.
They're able to display their strength better, yes, because they have better leverages. Getting leaner slowly over time. But I mean, I would argue I don't see people at the advanced level who are like, when I'm talking advanced, I'm talking the top, making huge jumps in their strength and staying weight stable. Most of the ones I'm seeing, they're off season, they're going up in weight, they're getting stronger, and then they're coming back down. You got to forget. I think a lot of people forget, especially in powerlifting, in a lot of these feds where you have a 24-hour weigh-in.
Oh yeah.
Jim Smith might have been in the 242 class, and like the day before last time he only weighed 247. This time he was weighing 270. And he cut down to 242. So while the scale weigh-in says he's the same weight, he was actually 15 pounds heavier. And then he just water depleted down. So you got that going on too. So these athletes are actually bigger. They're just making them weight. And that happens to an extent in weightlifting, not as much because you have a 2-hour weigh-in. Right. But you'll still see somebody gain 5 pounds of muscle can be a lot. And if they drop 5 pounds to make weight, and before they were in the same weight class, but they were light, that could mean huge numbers.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot going on there. So, and generally, I mean, I have people stick around weight classes for a while too, as long as their lifts are going up. But yeah, you're going to take a jump up eventually, and this leads into one of my notes here what I wanted to talk about. It's very new today to see people hanging around these lightweight classes for a long time. And I think it's a lot to do with, maybe a little bit to do with raw lifting, but I think it's a lot to do with just the culture we live in now and people wanting to be lean and small and look good all the time. Whereas before, let me find my quote here. I don't want to botch it, but I have one from Vasily Alexiev. So the time to look good is when your competition days are behind you. Then one must work on physique and look good as one wants. But during your competition days, a lifter must have a midsection that can stop a bullet, not giving any care to how aesthetic he looks or pleasing to the eye he can be.
And he was not very aesthetically pleasing, but ungodly strong.
Yeah, exactly. And that used to be what you used to see more was a lifter, I don't know, let's just pick a weight. They'd start out at 150, and they'd be in that weight class for a little while, and the next thing you know, okay, now they're 181, and they'd be there for a little while, and then, 220. And there was this onward, as they got better, they got stronger, they got bigger, they slowly went up to a weight class. You're seeing people kind of stick around and try and they're staying in these lighter weight classes longer, and I think this is where a lot of the records being broken are happening in those lighter weight classes because people didn't stick around in them before. They kind of used that as a jettison to go to the next weight class, so they didn't I'm going to stay here in 181 and just try and get as strong as I can. They didn't do that before. They hit 181 on their way to 220. They hit 220 on their way to 242. It was just kind of their next stepping stone. And that's why you saw the huge records in the 242, 275, 308, those other classes were just a stepping stone up to the big ones. Now you're seeing people stay there and dedicate years to a class, and break records there. So, that's one of the differences, I think. Just more time spent there. The more time, if I spend a decade being, 220, I'm probably going to slowly get stronger and break some awesome records. But so that's kind of one of the things you got going on is, just people trying to be leaner and stronger instead of just, I'm going to get freaking huge and lift giant weight. So,
yeah, and I think there's more of a resurgence of relative strength, and like you said, for powerlifting, just in the lower weight classes. Like if you go back, like maybe even 5 years ago, man, if I knew a 165 weight class lifter, that he was pretty rare. Now, Christ, I could name probably 5 to 7 just locally off the top of my head. So you definitely see a lot more, and a couple of them I've talked to are. One guy in particular, very, very strong individual, and he's kind of, I think topped out at 165, but it's also, I think, harder to go up to the next weight class, especially when you know what the totals are and that type of thing, because it's a little bit like being a beginner again.
Yeah.
You're kind of starting at the bottom, and you got to kind of slowly go up on your way, too.
Well, that's what a problem I see, though, is a lot of people end up sticking out these lighter weight classes too long when their frame is built to be something bigger.
Yeah.
So, you saw that. We've seen that with some of our weightlifters, with Kendrick Ferris, stuff like that. At a certain point, it's better to take that jump, and it might set you back 6 months, but in the long run, you're going to be better off. And I think for a long time in powerlifting, it was kind of skewed because, for a long time there, it was equipped lifting was the thing, and if I gain 15 pounds of even fat and I shove that in my same suit that I wore before, I'm essentially stronger. I just put 70 pounds of potatoes in a 50-pound bag, so that bag fits really tight. So you don't see that now, but it's in the end, it's still mass does move mass, and there's a reason why bigger people are just stronger in general. As far as trained athletes, if I take an elite 181er and an elite 308er, the elite 308er is going to be stronger, maybe not pound for pound, because those numbers kind of go out the window as we start reaching the human threshold of what they're able to pick up. You see that bell curve kind of start to even out, whereas you don't get, for every pound of body weight you put on, you don't get to add a pound to the bar anymore. But it's kind of this curve up, and it's, I don't know. People have different mindsets. I was always the one that's like, I want to see just how much I can move. I don't care what I weigh. I'm going to eat, and I'm going to train, and I'm going to see what I can move. And then there's other people. It's neither one of them's wrong. I just hate seeing people that get stuck on a weight class, and then they're like, it's been a year and they've only added 5 pounds. And it's like, man, if you just gained 10 pounds, you would be so much stronger. But you're afraid to eat, and that's weird for me in athletics. And that's that's one of the things we got into in that conversation about that quote was, I don't think Vasily was saying become Jabba the Hutt, but it's like eat for your sport. And I've seen it in other sports as well, where people are trying to stay too lean at the detriment of their performance. Most people walking the planet do not perform best at a low body fat. There's a few outliers there that are just jacked, naturally lean, but usually you're going to carry some kind of body fat. Where that is for you, it depends, but it's finding that level. But anyways,
one quick thing on that too. I think in the past, especially before a lot of social media stuff, you only really saw or heard of like the super heavyweights and the new total they broke.
Yes,
like you were saying, now you can, you have guys like Dan Green and other guys who are very lean, but pushing pretty big loads, and that's kind of the new sort of in kind of the strength, more aesthetic type thing too.
Well, and one thing that cannot be ignored is the high amounts of pharmaceuticals being used compared to 25 years ago.
Oh yeah,
and that's not, you're an idiot if you think that's not playing a role in it. and that's what I mean. Even you go back to Ed Cohn's day when he was the top dog and still potentially he's the greatest of all time.
Mm-hmm.
There were drugs. The amounts were much different.
Yes.
So I mean that does play a role in the ability for a person to stay lean and stay lighter and be stronger. So
yeah. And I'm kind of waiting for the next revolution of people that go back even further, like even to like the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, before, Dianabol was probably the main steroid in 1952.
Yeah.
So, back then people, unless there's a few outliers, weren't really using anything, but looked very good, were generally very strong. Were they as strong by powerlifting standards now? Probably not. But they did a lot of other things. They could do gymnastics, hand balancing, all those sorts of things. And I think if you pulled the average person off the street for just pure aesthetics, I think people would agree that they like that sort of look even better.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you're seeing some resurgence in that a bit, I guess. Multi-sport athletes and things like that. But
yep.
Let's hit on two more things and then take a break. Kratom, I don't want to... We got like an email like, I can't believe you guys didn't mention that. Well, we're going to mention it now. They lifted the ban. So,
really?
at least temporarily.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, it's temporarily from what I saw. Yeah.
So, at least temporarily it is lifted. So, I know it's back for sale now, so everybody can get their Kratom again. And, yeah, who knows where it goes from here, but it's pretty interesting to me. The interesting part about it is apparently just enough people that bitched about it, that at least for now, they listened. So we'll see what goes on from there. From what I hear, it's just a more tests need to be done type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how it leads from here. But I'm not up enough on it to tell you. But I figured we'd at least put that bit of news out there. And I was
actually pretty surprised that they did that because historically they don't listen very well. So to me, that's actually a really good thing. They can't just randomly try to ram stuff through without anybody knowing anymore. So I think that's actually a really good thing.
Yeah, I agree. And I was really surprised they did that.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing I wanted to talk about here before we go on to some listener questions was Chris Duffin hitting his... he had a goal of hitting 1,000 pounds for more than one rep. And he did it for a double, like 2.75 reps is kind of what they say. So there's a neat video out there where he's talking about it. And he's like... I didn't put this out there during it because he just didn't. And there's a film after, and you can see the people from the Guinness Book of World Records come in and they weigh every plate afterwards and things like that. But props to you, man. That's badass.
Yeah.
If it is with straps and sumo, you're still picking up 1,000 pounds for more than one rep, and that's pretty awesome.
Oh, so, yeah. Especially on a deadlift for multiple reps.
So, and he almost had that third rep. So, yeah, I mean, there's going to be people bitching like, sumo, so he's cheating. And, I take my time and I like poking at my people that are sumo deadlifters about being cheaters, but it's all in fun. You're still freaking picking it up. And the fact is everybody's leverages are a little different. I have lifters that are horrible at conventional deadlift because of the leverages. Mm-hmm. And then I'm people that is not very good at sumo because of my leverages. So, you kind of pick which one is good for you. And yeah, so badass. Now let's see if we can do his 1,000-pound squat, So I know he had talked about that too.
And I think I could be wrong, but isn't he the first guy to sumo over 1,000 pounds?
I think so, yeah. Well, he's definitely the first person I know of to do it for more than one rep.
Oh, by far, yeah. Because Benny was conventional, Bolton was conventional. A lot of the strongmen only pull conventional because sumo's outlawed. So, yeah. So that's crazy.
Yeah, pretty badass. So, we'll take a short break, and then we're going to come back. I know we've got at least a few listener questions, so we'll go from there.
Hey listeners, this is Dr. Lonnie Lowry. If you've ever had anyone critique you on your protein intake as part of your weightlifting lifestyle, oh, you poor meathead, all that extra protein is going to rot your kidneys or weaken your bones or dehydrate you or give you gout or who knows what, There is a book available. You could simply Google CRC Press and Lowry. And what I've done is reach out to experts all over the world and create a book, a single compendium that you can hold up and say, this is why I consume extra protein. This can be very valuable when you're being quote-unquote educated by various professionals on the topic. There's an enormous amount of literature in this book on the safety, the effectiveness, how protein works in cells, the history of protein and weight trainers, much more. So again, please check out CRC Press and Protein and Lowry. You can just Google that. And I do, full disclosure, I do make a small single-digit royalty on the book. But that's not why I did it. I did it so we can all have something, our particular population, to both defend what we do and to inform our nutrition and our eating. Thanks.
Fall and soon winter will be upon us. As the holidays approach and your thoughts turn to giving, please consider your friends here at IronRadio.org. Over the past several years, there have been hundreds of listener comments hoping that Iron Radio stays on the air for years to come. Iron Radio is here for you. But as with any public radio type format, the show is listener supported. That's where you come in. For just $4 per month, you can become a supporting member, keeping your weekly dose of education, experts, and gym talk flowing. Just go to www.ironradio.org and click on the $4 monthly subscribe button near the bottom of the page, or click the donate button at the right of the page for a one-time donation. You are the Iron Brotherhood and Sisterhood. Thanks for helping to create a place for better internet programming for all strength and muscle sports. And happy holidays.
Hi, this is Dr. Lonnie Lowry, and on behalf of Phil and Rob, I'd just like to let listeners know that if you love us or you hate us, we'd like you to leave a comment or perhaps vote for us on iTunes. It helps us out quite a bit on the popularity side of things. You can also follow Dr. Lowry, me, on Twitter. It's Lawnman7 on Twitter if you want to do that. We also have a Facebook page, the Iron Radio listeners page. So whether it's leaving a comment or voting for us or following us on Twitter or Facebook, that would be fantastic. Also, occasionally Rob or myself will write an article for another website, and Phil will as well. So lots of ways to interact, follow us in other media, and vote for us and keep things going strong on Iron Radio. Thanks.
Like your weekly fix of Iron Radio? In addition to being a popular institute on iTunes, we are also on email. Simply go to www.ironradio.org and sign up for the voluntary email. You'll get a once per week email, no more. That's little more than the show notes and a link to the audio. So go for it.
Hey, what's going on? You're listening to Iron Radio here with Dr. Mike T. Nelson, Phil Stevens. Lonnie is out doing whatever Lonnie does, some uber nerd stuff, or driving in his car in the middle of Bumbletown nowhere, I guess. So we've got some random questions that came in through Facebook and other sources here. So I'll start one off here from Jason Perrin. He asks, variations of a deload. Do you think they are important for hypertrophy as they are for strength gains? Well, I'll start and then I'll hand it over to you, Mr. Phil.
Yeah.
I would say they're probably less important, but in reality, the programs I've done for a couple of natural physique competitors and most people I work with want to perform well, but also have, want to look good too. I tend to run the deloads or tapers really almost the same way. I don't really make any huge distinction from that. I have noticed that some people don't get as beat up by hypertrophy work, myself included. But even someone who's like a physique athlete, I still have some strength component in there. It's not 100% hypertrophy all the time. So I've just noticed that there's more variation from one individual to the next individual than I have as much of their training goals. You know, I've got some guys, one guy who's working to qualify for Raw Nationals again. He does pretty long, I would say, it runs, 8 some weeks or plus. Sometimes he's got up to 12 weeks. And we monitor his heart rate variability and other indicators, and he usually does pretty good with that. Most of my average clients are probably in the 4 to 6 week area, because I tend to start off really slow and then tend to push it pretty hard over that and then pull back again. And that seems to work pretty good. I also know part of that is that people tend to get bored doing the same thing over and over too. So there's a little bit of trying to incorporate some, variety and things of that nature in too. So what's your thoughts, Phil?
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm weird in that I'm kind of like you. I don't. If you're a distance client, there's many times I will go ahead and schedule in a deload, and that's because I'm not right there to see what the hell's going on.
Right.
With my people on site, I really don't have a scheduled deload.
Oh, interesting.
What we do is I watch them, and as long as that iron's still hot, we're going to keep pushing.
Mm-hmm.
Once I see things start to go, if that goes for numerous sessions in a row, now we're going to lower things down, let you refresh yourself a bit, come back, hit it hard again. So we'll kind of, I just don't, if things are still going well, why are we going to slow down?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's kind of what I do. But as far as hypertrophy and I'd say, like you said, it's more important for strength work a bit. But, the only thing I see is a lot of times with hypertrophy work, people taking a week off and, getting just deconditioned, if you will, when you come back, you're almost wrecked with soreness again.
Oh, sure.
That's what you're looking for, and you see that as kind of some people crave that and train off that well, like we talked about before. And maybe that can kickstart your vigor into pushing it hard again and things like that. Because a lot of people just get wore out, like you said, from doing things over and over again. So maybe a little bit of time off of not doing anything, even if it's just a placebo effect, or just re-energizes them to come hit it hard again, it can be a good thing. So,
yeah, I know Brian Haycock way back in the day. I remember he had some stuff on me called HST, or hypertrophic specific training, I think. And he advocated taking a longer kind of deload every once in a while. And by deload, if I remember correctly, exactly what you said, very almost no work at all.
Mm-hmm. And
the thought process then was exactly what you were saying, trying to get some of that soreness again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Dr. Brad Schoenfeld's here. I'll have to pester him and some other guys here about that and get their thoughts, because we know now that soreness isn't as related to hypertrophy as we used to think, but it's definitely still one of the components with that.
So we'll go on to Gnash. Gnash Keegley. He has a question about coming back from a major injury. I ruptured a pec major tendon off the bone at the end of January 2016 and had it reattached a few weeks later. I progressed to the point where I'm stronger in the 70 to 80% range than I was pre-injury. At what point would you guys say it's safe to attempt a 90-95% weight again? I don't have a meet until January 2017, so I'm in no rush. Thanks. At this point, let's say it happened you had your reattachment in February. March, April, May, June, October. You're 8 months out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're 8 months out. As much as I know about reattachments of tendons and things like that, it's as healed as it's going to get at this point. So what's holding you back is your mind. So it's when I think you can start easing into that and see what things feel like. Don't do anything stupid. You've hit 70 to 80%. I'm not saying go up to 105 today, but slowly go 85. If that feels good, next time go 90. And start hitting some. If you're stronger in that 70-80% range than you were pre-injury, then honestly 100% isn't your 100% now.
Yeah.
So you should be able to hit those 90 to 95% ranges fairly easily, and get some volume in. Hit 6 to 8 singles, stuff like that. Get your head back behind you is what I would say, because that's going to be the number one thing. When your head's not behind you, you don't move right. So you'll move funny. You need to get your confidence back with fairly heavy loads, meaning 90% plus, before you try 100%. That's what I would do. I think you're ready. I mean, as far as, I'm not a doctor, but everything I know about all the tendon tears and stuff I've had, that at this point it's not going to heal any more than it is. So.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I know Coach Chris Summers has said something like that. It's, I think, around 9 months for soft tissue turnover. And granted, he's at a repair, so I mean that's a little bit different. But yeah, I agree with your answer, and just see how it feels. Make sure technique and everything is there. And I like what you said about doing some heavier attempts, but doing it for multiple sets.
Yeah. Right.
So, excuse me. So even if you're only doing like an easy single, maybe 1 week you come in and you do it twice and it looks pretty good. And maybe you do it 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. You can just add volume there, just as you get more comfortable, and that'll transfer too. If you can do, 9 sets of a really nice, pretty good speed single, you're definitely stronger.
Yeah. You don't need to go for that 100% until the meet, really, in July of 2017.
Yeah.
So, you're good there. But this is a tough one here. William Jim, I'd like some advice for dealing with a left shoulder and upper middle left back injury. Well, the problem with that is we don't really know what's going on.
What injury?
So I'd say, find out exactly what it is. Go to a doctor. The shoulders are a pain in the butt. It might be something. It might be something that needs cleaned up. It really might. There's a lot of people that have shoulders that are cleaned up over time. Without looking at your training, I would say more rowing, more pulling movements, over pressing movements, because that's where most people are guilty. If they have shoulder pains, they have an imbalance in the anterior. As for the posterior is not as strong, so that's one thing to look at. Don't do anything that hurts. If it hurts, freaking stay away from it. There's a bunch of other things to do. Like I have a hell of a time pressing overhead, but I can do dips, I can do bench, I can do. So I stay away from that range of motion a lot. And then when I go to that range of motion, I go light and just rep it out. So.
Do you find for you like dumbbells are better than a bar? Is it the restricted path?
No, I jack my shoulder all up. So like I did this the other day. I did 115-pound dumbbell strict for a set of 5 with my left arm. I did 45 pounds with my right.
Oh, weird.
So yeah, the
is that
right
from
on
the hip stuff?
No, it's from jacking my shoulder up.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so I got a shoulder that's pretty tore up, and it'll eventually need fixed. But for now I'm okay with it. But so yeah, I mean, find out what it is. Before we can kind of say what's going on, we need to know more about it and what it is. So.
Yeah. The only thing I would add too is a real quick kind of dirty test you can do is I worked with a guy a couple of years ago. Was a natural physique competitor, had all sorts of shoulder issues on, I think it was his left side if I remember correctly. Couldn't even bench press 20-pound dumbbells without pain on an incline press. And then, it took us a while. I think it was like probably almost 9 months, but, we got him back to setting, PRs with like, I think 100s or 115s or something for reps, something crazy. And the big thing with him is that he had been to all sorts of different physicians, physical therapists, and they said, well, the shoulder looks fine. So he had, the x-rays. I think he even had an MRI at one point, and structurally everything in the shoulder was fine. And so what we did was we found a lot of it was actually referred, or it seemed to be, from his right hip. So one test you can do is check your external rotation on the left side. So kind of like you're bringing your hand out at 90 degrees, like a stop sign kind of. And then check your right hip for internal rotation. So basically the direct opposite. And what I find a lot of times is that people are severely lacking the internal rotation on their right hip if their left shoulder is not getting that full external rotation. And, just work on the internal rotation. There's different ways you can do that. And then just see if it transfers. Can you get more external rotation? Does that kind of reduce some of the pain? Again, that may not be what's going on here, but I've had I don't know how many clients now, and I've even got people referred from, very top-level clinics in Minnesota, which I won't name, that the orthopedics and everyone becomes very hyper-specialized on only one joint. I'm the shoulder person, I'm the knee person, and, by all means, if I ever need an ACL replacement, I'm going to go to the best damn knee orthopedic person I can possibly find.
Yeah.
But when you're doing more of the rehab and more of the general movement, you still have to look at the entire body as a whole, too, and make sure that it's not something else going on somewhere, like in the right hip, that may be making the shoulder worse.
Yeah. You got any more?
I've got one more here. It says, looking forward to seeing some work I'm doing on ketogenic diets. So I did a point-counterpoint for Dr. Andy Gilpin's, basically his section in the journal for the NSCA. So that was approved and peer-reviewed. So that'll be out probably in 3 to 6 months, so people can look for that. He said, have you ever heard of Ray Peat or looked into any of his work? If so, do you have any thoughts on his views? I haven't looked at anything Ray Peat's done for quite a while, to be honest. I looked at some of it probably like 2 years ago now, and some of the principles I could figure out that he was talking about I think were good. Some of them I thought were batshit crazy. A lot of the support for it, at least in the handful of articles I read, was a lot of animal data. And I'm all right with people using animal data, but you should say it's animal data. And, if you're Dr. Brad Schoenfeld and I had this big discussion over Mexican food last night about, when is it safe to speculate versus non-speculate and that type of thing. But as far as I could tell, he took a lot of pretty heavy extensions with things. And I don't know. I can't figure it out, to be honest. And I know some people that follow a lot of his stuff, and they seem to have gotten better. So if you're better, that's cool. But I don't know. Some of the other stuff I just can't quite wrap my head around. So for right now, I think I don't know how much of that I would take without doing a lot more further research.
I got nothing to say because I don't know who the guy is. So
yeah, I used to have the. Some of the people that would follow his stuff, because one of his big things, if I remember correctly, and someone can email me if I'm wrong, but that fish oil was bad. And I had one guy in particular that used to send me these long tirades about fish oil and how it was evil. And I remember once I had some posts probably a couple of years ago, and I went to bed, and because sometimes I won't be on Facebook for a day or two at times, or just briefly pop in here and there. Get up the next morning and checked it like later afternoon. And I think he had replied to himself 6 times.
Holy moly.
And the last one said, well, if you want to keep taking fish oil, you might as well put random bullets in a gun and play Russian roulette.
Oh, wow.
I'm thinking, with fish oil?
Yeah.
That's like the one thing we probably have more data on, that and creatine in terms of sports supplements than like anything. And almost all of it is positive. Yeah, you can find a few studies that weren't really the greatest and weren't uber positive, but I haven't seen a boatload of fish oil studies that are bad for you.
Yeah.
So you get some people just have these weird thoughts that get stuck in their head, and there's probably not much you're going to do to talk them out of it. But I'll take chances with fish oil.
I got to get out of here, but we got 2 more that we'll hit real quick. What are our thoughts on supersets?
Oh.
Supersets for strength purposes. Can they be an effective tool to build strength and keep some conditioning, or are they not ideal for both at once? I'd say I like supersetting assistance work. Mm-hmm. It saves time, and it can keep you in shape. I mean, but I'm also one of those people that don't believe in strength athletes that are just worthless and can't walk upstairs. So I want my athletes to be in shape too, and because generally if they're in shape, they recover better from hard training sessions. So yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with hit your hard stuff and then pick up the pace on your assistance work. Keep your heart rate up. Go through it. It's just assistance work. So yeah, I think I think it can help you build strength because your conditioning's a little better, your ability to recover is a little better, which in turn helps you add strength a little better.
Yeah, quickly, I would generally agree. Although for some people who I know want to turn everything into a frickin' circuit training session, I will do I got from Cal Dietz, like a biometric method. So I will force them to wait till their heart rate comes down to a certain point. And with assistance work, that's anywhere from 85 to 110 beats per minute. It's, you don't have to come all the way back down to 60. But, some people I know I had to measure their heart rate in between, and it was like 150, 140, 135, and I'm like, it's not really lifting now. You're doing more conditioning work. And if you're doing it for a conditioning thing or more of an aerobic thing through lifting, okay. But, if you're doing it to get stronger, then I think you probably need to drop the heart rate a little bit there.
Yeah. The last one we'll touch on is warm-ups for old people.
They're calling us old.
No, there's two guys here that they find warming up and recovering to be much more difficult as they age. Anything specific as warming up. I think as we get older, and we probably should have started it younger, just a general warm-up is probably a good idea. Like for me now, I get on a bicycle. If I'm on a squat or deadlift, I get on the frickin' Airdyne, and I just get everything lubricated and moving, and generally warmed up, and it makes me feel better. And I think maybe if we had done that when we were younger, maybe it would help, stave off a little injury or something. But I don't know. I mean, that's hard to tell. But yeah. I think just getting generally warmed up is a good idea. So.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. I think people tend to take it sometimes a little bit too far. But I also use that as an indicator as to their training and lifestyle. If they have to get to the gym 45 minutes before they can lift anything, boy, unless they've got a lot of injuries they're working around, something's going on. Their program's off, or their lifestyle's a mess, or whatever. I was up to an hour and 25 minutes at one point in my life before I could lift anything, and I was an utter freaking disaster.
Yeah.
But I think, just even like taking more warm-up sets, even just pull 405. Hey, take your time, go through your warm-up sets, make sure it feels. If 185 doesn't feel good, just repeat 185 then again.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. There's many times that I'll hit and repeat the same weight over and over again until it feels right before I go up again. So things like that, just make it feel right before you. Well, I got to go to 405, so my next step is 275. Well, no, hit 225 again until it feels right.
Yeah,
So things like that. But let's call it a day. I got to get out of here.
Yep, sounds good.
So, thanks, everybody.
All right, see you guys.
Hey, listeners, have you seen the store at IronRadio.org? There are 3 halls in the store, one for Phil, one for Fortress, and one for myself, Dr. Lowry, and they're thematic. So you can go into our Halls of Iron store and choose based on your goal. If you need something to learn or read or something nutritional, you can look in my store, Lonnie's store. If you want something about injury prevention or competition, then take a look at Phil's Hall of Iron. And if you want something about motivation or daily training, Fortress's Hall has what you're looking for. There are some fun, heroic descriptors as you browse through the store, so we try to make it a little more fun than the average boring online store. And whether you're a novice lifter or someone more experienced, you can take heart that you're not wasting your time. The things that we put in each Hall of Iron are actually based on our own recommendations. Protein powders that we know to be good, knee sleeves, wraps of some kind, things that Fortress uses in his own training. The stuff you see, is good. This way you don't waste time. So check out the Iron Radio store at ironradio.org and let us know what you think on the forums, and certainly you can request products and we will screen them before they go in. So thanks for listening. Iron Radio is accepting donations. If you like what we do, the professors, the scientists, the bodybuilding show promoters, the athletes themselves in powerlifting and bodybuilding, please consider making a donation or maybe buying something from the ironradio.org store. We also are accepting supporting members. So for $4 a month, which is frankly less than the bank sneaks out of your account in fees, you can step up and support a form of sort of public radio for the bodybuilding and powerlifting and strength community. The Iron Radio podcast and all of the audio on ironradio.org is for informational purposes only. If you're interested in starting a diet, or exercise program, it's important to check with your physician. Also seek the help of registered dietitians, athletic trainers, and qualified exercise physiologists in order to make the progress that you need.